Hello Stampers, my name is Linda Bedinger and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. And today I'd like to show you how I made this card. I'm going to bring this up so you can see all of the elements of this. And it's a pretty fussy little card, but the result is so pretty. I decided to go ahead and make a video on it. And on the inside it has got the greeting and some roses. And this is using the first Frost suite. And I'll show you what I used to make this card. I used dies from the Frosted Bouquet Framelits, and I used the thistle here. That's kind of fun because I have thistles growing in my yard that are actually blue thistles, so that's kind of fun. Then I used the die for the small rose and the larger rose. And incidentally, on this set, there are 2 of the thistles and 2 of the smaller roses, which makes it a lot easier for cutting out, because I cut out quite a bit on this one in order to make it go. Then I used this die here, which is represented by this sprig and leaves. And then I used this die here, which is a long bit of greenery. And let's see, what else did I use? I used this die. So there's a lot of die cutting to make this particular card. But once you get your die cutting done, it's easy as pie. And what I did use in the stamp set then, first Frost, I used the large rose, the small rose, this cluster of berries and leaves, this piece of greenery, the thistle. I did not use this, but I did use the die that doesn't, it cuts out something similar, but not exactly the same. And then my sentiment, here's to a season filled with warmth, comfort, and good cheer. So I used quite a bit of the stamp set and quite a bit of the dies. I think there were probably 2 dies that I didn't use. Okay, so what do you need to do this card? Well, you really need surprisingly little in the way of materials. Move my dies out of the way there. I put this on a cherry cobbler base. 8, let's see, this is 4 1/4 by 11, scored and folded at 5 1/2. Then I have 2 pieces of shaded spruce, 4 1/8 by 5 3/8, and I have 2 pieces of whisper white that measure 4 by 5 1/4. And then what I have is a very large piece of white to cut out all of my elements, and some scrap cherry cobbler to cut out my little berry sprigs here. Okay, so I'm going to start by showing you some of the stamping. And the colors of ink that I'm using is I'm using cherry cobbler, shaded spruce, and then I'm using gorgeous grape and balmy blue. And I don't need very much of these 2, but the accents are such that it's something that I wanted to have in here. So I'm going to start by showing you, first of all, the stamping. This one is brand new. I've not opened it. The stamping of the berries and leaves. And there's a trick to getting the stamp stamped up so that you get 2 colors on the same stamp. What I found is if you look at the construction of this stamp, the berries are all right here on a top, cut almost into a V. And then the leaves are on the bottom. So that I found that if you took your berry sprigs and you ink them up on the corner of your ink pad, you could get all of the ink you wanted on the berries. Now, in this case, I got a tiny bit on my leaf. I'm just going to wipe that off. Okay, on the greenery, this little leaf is kind of off by itself. So I inked that one up also in the corner, and then I inked up these two. So that when I got myself all inked up, I had green on the bottom and I had my cherry cobbler on the top. Then I went ahead and stamped my images. There we go, and you can see it's pretty true. So I'm going to do it again here because I used 3 of these images on the die cutting, and then I did a lot of stamping with this otherwise. So I'm going to make 3 impressions here for die cutting, and as is my practice, I've already done some of this, but this is going to be good for another card. And I just want you to see how I did it. And then this can be set up to run through your die cutting machine. Sort of, you can slice these pieces, and actually you can get quite a few pieces on your die cutting machine through one pass. So you can get quite a bit without too much fuss. So there's my 3. And what I did then was I took my gorgeous grape here, and I put a little bit of gorgeous grape on this paintbrush here, and I put a little bit of the gorgeous grape on my leaves. Amazingly, this gorgeous grape color really is very complementary with the shaded spruce. And I wanted to do that because I colored my thistles a certain way, and then I wanted to make sure that this tied in. So I just put a little bit of gorgeous grape on the bottom of my leaves here, just enough to give a hint of the purple. And this one is kind of interesting because it's kind of traditional colors for Christmas, but really when you add the purples and the roses, it kind of takes it out of what's ordinary for that. Okay, so there I've got a little bit of purple on my leaves, and I ran those through the die cutting machine, and so here was my result. There's my sprigs cut with the little bit of purple on the leaves, and I needed 3 of them for this project. So there's my sprigs ready to go. Then the thistle. I used the purple and the balmy blue. I'm going to leave these out because I'm going to use them again here in a second. And on the thistle, what I did was I cleaned off my stamp here, and then I decided that I was going to put it in the lighter color first, here with the blue. And like I said, this is kind of fun for me because I have some of those, and I don't remember what the technical name for them is, but they're blue and silver ornamental thistles that I grow in my garden, and they're just beautiful. And I'm just going to go around the edges and maybe a tiny bit at the top. Now I'm going to go back to my sheet here, and I needed 3 thistles. So there's 3 thistles. And again, I'm just going to wipe off my block, not completely, but get a little blue and a little purple. And they don't all have to be exactly the same. And again, the blue first, and then little bits of the purple here for my thistles. And there I've got 3 thistles. Then, let's see, I did cut out 3 of these sprigs of the berries. So there's 3 of those. And then on this longer die here that is represented by this stamp, what I did was I stamped that image, and I think, let's see, there's my image, and it's lost its block. There it is. Okay, so there we go. So I did this one in the shaded spruce, and I made 3 images of this stamp. And what I did was, there's a real easy place right in the middle of this this long piece that it cuts off and makes 2. And I only needed 3 for my card here. And then there's, of course, the roses. And I did the roses in cherry cobbler. And these are those roses. They ink up, and they don't look like they're inked up evenly, and they're not. But that's the way it's supposed to look. So I had a couple of those roses, and then I did a couple of the smaller roses. So you can see this card is a bit on the fiddly side. Now you can easily fit a little rose down here. You could fit a thistle over here. And if you're careful on how you do this, I used, getting ready for this, I used a whole sheet of white to do all of my stamping. But then I was trying to make extra so that I wouldn't have to bore you all with cutting and doing. So that's pretty much what I needed to make my card. So I've got my die pieces here, and I've got my large rose and my 2 smaller roses here. And what I did on these smaller roses is, I'll show you, I'll just take one that hasn't been dealt with yet. Okay, and let me put the inks away here. This would be really pretty also in the rich razzleberry. Would make it even a little less traditional looking. But on these little roses, what I did was I took my Pierce mat and the back of my pokey tool. I wanted to give these a little dimension and use the end of my pokey tool here to get some dimension. And on the little roses, I did that. On the larger one, I bent that one more back a bit, just so that it got a different kind of dimension. And you could poke up the edges of it if you wanted to. There's all kinds of things that you can do with these to get a little bit more realism. Okay, so that is what I did on the stamping there. Now we have some stamping to do on one of our white panels. And so what I did on the white panel is that same scheme. I took the berries and the leaves stamp and the cherry cobbler and the shaded spruce, and I did some stamping around the base of my card here. This is the front panel. So just like I showed you before, I'm going to get ink on my berries here, and then I'm going to ink up my leaves here separately. And what I'm going to do is, this is curved a little bit. So what I did was I put it on the top of my card and stamped on, because I really wanted this to have the look of just tremendous fullness. So there we go. And so I'm going to keep going on. Oops, that won't do. I'm going to have green berries here in a minute. So let me clean this off, and I'll speed up the video so it isn't quite so tedious. I did it again. I guess I need to have my cherry cobbler up there since that's the direction I seem to want to go. And I'll do one more on camera here. There we go. And then inked up my leaves here separately. And what I did was I overlapped them by putting the berries on top of the leaves as I was going around the page. And what I'm going to do is make just a rough wreath here. So like that, and then the next one I will put here, and so on. So now I'll speed up the video. Okay, so there I have my wreath stamped on my card, and I wouldn't worry too much about it being perfectly round, because the elements that we're going to add in are going to make it a bit more round. So I'm going to close up my inks for now, get ink off of my hands. I can see that I've got little bits and pieces of it here, evidenced by a fingerprint or two on my page. And yeah, it's a lot of ink, so you're going to end up with lots of ink everywhere, so it's good to clean up a lot in the middle. All right, so the first thing I did was to put my elements like this here, and to save a little bit of time, I've already put my dimensionals on the backs of these, and I did lift all three of these up on dimensionals. And because part of the beauty of this card is the dimension and the depth that it gives because of all of the layers. Okay, so this first one, I am going to just start right here. And I'm going to put 3 of these on, and this is where we can start working on round, if you will, by manipulating these layers here. And I will put one down here, and you see it already looks a little bit more round, and then one of them over here. So again, I will speed up the video. All right, there we go. And on these pieces, what I found was that tucking these in around here, really, I didn't need the long stem, and I added just a touch of snail here at the bottom of these, and just tuck them in to fill in and give some depth. And depending on how you place these, they come out a little bit different every time, but that's just fine. This one, I'm going to tuck right in here. Then I have my little thistles ready also with a little dimensional, and I found that the stems were a bit long on these, so I'm cutting those down and I'm sticking these pieces in a little bit where they'll show a little differently, and it just depends on where you need the color and what appeals to your eye. All I did with these was I kind of bent them a little bit under just so that they wouldn't be flat, and like I said, trimmed a little bit off the ends of the pieces here. I'm going to stick this one right down here. Okay, so there we go. Now these pieces I also gave a little dimension, and I put a little bit of glue on the top and the bottom, and then put them into place to again add roundness here, and I lifted them a little bit in the middle so they're not completely flat. And I would say use as many as you need for filler. I'm not putting a lot right in here because I think my roses are going to end up going right in here on this one. So again, a little bit of snail on the top and the bottom, and then again maybe giving this just a little bit of lift to add some texture around. And it looks like I could use another one here. I might even could use another one there, and I always cut extra. Let's see, because my roses are going to go in there, so let me put this one in here. And then raise that up a little bit and put this in here under there. There, I think now, right now it looks a little lopsided. Okay, here's my little extras. And again, a little bit of tape on the top and the bottom. And I'm going to round out this bottom corner here by putting one of these here and then underneath and rounding that out. And these couple of little berries, this is looking just a little empty in here, so I think I will add the couple of these that I have that I cut. There we go. All right, now it looks like the right place for my roses are right in here, and on this one what I might do is do a cluster of 3 that way rather than around this way. Looks like the card actually, the way it got stamped, looks like that might be the best. So I'm going to put these in here. And looks like this one needs another dimensional. And then what I did for the roses, I told you this was fiddly, didn't I? But it appealed to me. I guess I was in a fiddly mood. So on this one, what I did was, first I used my wink of Stella right in the center and kind of went around these roses. And I decided after I did the other one that I wished I had done a little bit more wink on all of the roses. And so I'm going to do that on this one. And the wink is going to move around the color of the roses a little bit so that the edges end up not being nearly so white, which is just fine as far as I'm concerned. I'd rather they wouldn't be white anyway. All right. Then I did take a little bit of this shimmer paint, the Frost White, and I used a little brush here, and I frosted the edges of some of the greenery. And just a little bit right on the edges to give a little bit of shine. On some of those pieces, even on the roses. Okay, and then I did put wink on my thistles, because those thistles that I have in my yard do look shimmery. They've almost got a silver cast to them, and they're just beautiful. And so I dabbed a little bit of wink on my berries here, and a little bit of the frost on some of them, and just enough to give a little bit of sparkle to my card here. Then I used, let's see, better put this away. I used some of our pearls here that were the silver pearls, because I thought gold or too sparkly might not look right, that I might be better off with something that had more of that same frosty look. And so what I did was I put 3 little pearls in the center of each of the flowers, just to give it a different kind of finishing touch. There we go. Isn't that just pretty? And so then, in order to put this into place on our card, I have ever so tiny a border of the green around this piece, and so I used Tombow so that I could get a few extra seconds to put things in place. And because these borders are so tiny on here, I used Tombow for all of my gluing down this time. With tiny little borders like that, you want a second to move things around if you need to. And it's fine to me, these came a little bit off the edge because my card continues here, and I think everything will be on the card by the time we're done. Same thing with this. I'm going to use Tombow. There is my card front pretty much done. Isn't that pretty? Gosh, I just love this set. Okay, now for the inside of the card, what I did was, using my Cherry Cobbler ink, I stamped 3 of the roses right down here in the corner, 1 of the larger roses, and then 1 each of the smaller roses next to them. And then I used my Wink of Stella to move that ink around right away so that I got a nice unstamped, more watercolored look on the on the flowers here so that I left none of the white showing, and the roses got colored in a little bit. And I thought that looked very attractive. And then I took this stamp, and it says, "Here's to a season filled with warmth, comfort, and good cheer." And I took that one and I tucked it right over here in the corner on the opposite side of the roses and put it down at an angle. And there we have a nice stamped image. And despite how fiddly this is, in the end, it goes fairly quickly once you have everything cut. Now on this, I'm just going to put a little bit of snail, although this is one where the margins are awfully tiny. So I just have to pray for the best. In fact, I think I will do this one in Tombow. I'm so used to using snail sometimes that I forget about Tombow, but this time I really needed it for the extra wiggle room. So here we go on the inside of the card, and there is a very special card for somebody at the holiday season. If I still had my mother, this would go to her. She loved little fiddly things and things that had lots of detail on them. And I think she would have loved this card. Okay, there we go. And so there is our project for the day. There's the sample that I did ahead of time, and there's the one that we made together today. Thank you so much for stopping by my YouTube channel today. I do so appreciate it. And I did just the other day pass 10,000 subscribers. And so one of the things that I promised to do is have a giveaway with every video for 30 days after I hit my 10,000 subscribers. So here it is. What I'm giving away is this 3-sided corner punch, and it is called Detailed Trio Punch, and it gives you a rounded edge. It gives you a little floral 3-leaf floral piece on a corner, and you can use these two together, and it cuts the corner and puts the flowers underneath. And then there's this that is a tiny little oval, which is very handy for using where you need to thread ribbon through something. So that is the prize. And so if you make a comment below the video, and a share would be wonderful, then I will pick a winner in the next couple of days to win the triple or detailed trio punch. So again, thanks so much for stopping by. The prize draw for the month of October is a $50 shopping spree on me. You get to pick your own prize this month. And the prize winner for last month was Judith Irvin. I don't think I ever put that or said that out loud. And we've communicated, and she's pretty excited. She said she never wins anything. Well, you won with me. And so her material is in the post and on the way to her now. So let's see. Joining Stampin' Up! Right now is a very, very good time. I'd love to have more people on my team. We've just passed a quarter end. And so the only thing that's required to continue to get your discounts is to buy or sell $300 worth of material in a quarter's time. But because we've just passed a quarter and this won't be a complete quarter, the first time that minimum will have to be met is the end of March. And so it makes it a wonderful time to join because you have virtually 6 months to make that first minimum. And when you make that first minimum, it gets you all the way through then to June. And it gets you through celebration and the occasions catalog launch and all kinds of things. It's a great time to join. So if you want to talk about it or you're curious about it at all, give me a holler. My information is always listed below the video. So until next time, I'll be back with more cards and more projects. Bye.